Hello everyone, welcome into One-on-One with Benjamin Cure. I'm your host, Benjamin Cure, and we're reviving this series after several years because I think that this series truly shaped me into the journalist and man that I am today. And so I think it's great. We're at the perfect time in my life, I think, to restart this series, and we're gonna make it part of the Benjamin Cure Show. And with that, we have the perfect guest who is an investor, who is an entrepreneur, who's a filmmaker, who's a former athlete. He started off his journey as a Brazilian-American soccer prospect before eventually finding his way to the United States, 6,000 miles away, playing soccer in the MLS when really it was just getting started. And watching it grow into what it has been all so exciting for both of us as people who were part of the MLS in different capacities. Please help me in welcoming the man, Roberto Linck. Roberto, thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Of course. So Roberto, you grew up in Brazil in a town of about 80,000 people. So not a huge city, but not a small one either. How did that shape your upbringing?
Yeah, well, I am from this small town. I never got to live there because my family, they moved around when I was younger. We moved from place to place until I was about 13. That's when we finally moved to the United States. And then here in the United States, I lived kind of all over. I lived in Utah, then California, then Chicago, Boston, and then finally landed here in Miami. So it's been a journey.
Absolutely. And I don't think you would probably have it any other way if you had the chance to redo it all over again. But you moved from Brazil to United States, 6,000 miles apart, right? Yeah. And at a very young age as well. What was that transition like both on the field and off it?
Well, it was very hard at first because, when I was in Brazil, I had first I had my little girlfriend there. I know I was very young, but, so it was hard to move away from my friends, from that girlfriend of mine. Then I moved to Utah, and I didn't speak any English. It was very hard to learn. I thought in my life I was like, I don't think I can ever learn how to speak English because it was very difficult. And I think I was the only foreigner in the school. So it was very tough at first. But then, then you start making the friends, and, it was awesome that I played soccer because then, as I was playing soccer, I got to meet a lot of really nice people, and we became friends. We had our little group, and then we played together. Then we won the state championship together at high school. So then it became awesome after a while.
At what point in there did soccer go from something of passion, of love that maybe connects you with your friends to, I could make a career out of this?
Well, I always I think I always was a little bit different than my friends playing soccer. So, I remember very young, I was with my father one time. We were at our sailing club, and there was some older kids playing soccer. And I came in there to play with them, and then my father was watching me. And at first, we did I was in one team with other 5 kids, and then versus other 5 kids. And my father go out to buy a drink. When he come back, it was 8 kids versus 3 because they start moving the kids that were with me to the other team to get the team to be equal, So that was the first time my father even told me, he's like, oh my God, you're pretty good. So I noticed that I had a little bit more talent than some of the other kids. So I always thought in my head, eventually I think I'm gonna become a professional soccer player.
And then you finally make your way to Major League Soccer. Yeah. And I want to ask you here, because this is where you've pivoted so well as a businessman. When you were playing in the MLS, did you think, oh, I'm going to be an owner of a team one day? Or was it a little more subtle than that?
No, never. I actually never. I think most soccer players, when they're playing, they're just so focused on to playing that they don't think anything outside. They don't think that their career will ever finish. They, because you're there, and then there's so many I don't know how to explain. It's just, so much attention on you playing, and nobody ever says oh, you should start thinking about your future because the soccer career is very short. But I did meet some really nice people that actually started telling me this. When I got my injury, they told me you should maybe think of something else. And one of them, told me, he said, why don't you purchase a soccer team? Which for me at the time, the idea to even own a soccer team was crazy. That never even came to my head.
I want to go back a little bit, though, because in 2010, you signed with the New England Revolution, and you actually make an appearance in 2 different matches. But unfortunately, you suffer an injury that essentially keeps you out for the remaining 4 games of the season and ends your season effectively. Right. Was that the lowest point of your professional soccer career, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, well, actually, I think that I had a lot of low points. Even before I got into Major League Soccer, I was playing in Romania, and it was very harsh. You know, I went through a lot of crazy situations there, and you know, I ended up leaving, and I ended up you know, going back to the United States and playing in the MLS. But yeah, when I arrived in the New England Revolution, it was amazing. You know, like I was getting along with the teammates, everything was going good, and I started having all these problems with my legs. So I remember one time, the coach Nicol pulls me into the to his office and he says, "Listen, I want you to play like this and like that. I want you to," because he wanted me to start in the game. And I was in the office with him, and my leg was not feeling good. And I was worried. I was like, in my head, I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to go right now to the training session. I don't know what even to say to him because I was not 100%. And after, when I leave his room, and he was excited for us to go to the field so we can start training because he was going to put me in a special position that he wanted. I arrived at the field, and as I'm stepping my foot, I couldn't even, you know, so I told him, I was like, I'm sorry, I need to go back to the training room because I'm gonna need to ice my leg, you know. And he looked at me and he just like slammed his arm like this, and it was so frustrating because you want to perform, but all these injuries, you know, they're like kind of like pulling you down, and it was so frustrating.
And I'm sure it must have been tough as a player. When he was asking you or telling you how he wanted you to play, was it that he was telling you, Roberto, I want you to play a little more aggressively? Like, did he want you to double down? Did he want you to play a little bit more conservatively? Like, what exactly was he telling you?
He was, well, one of the things he always told me was, don't put your foot on top of the ball, which that's something that I always do because of futsal, which I hated. And always to play simple because I'm a dribbler. So that was always the things that he would tell me, like, you know, just play one to touch, play simple. Don't try too much because sometimes I would try a lot of stuff. But actually, that day, the specific thing he was telling me was the tactics, how the team was, you know, pivoting, you know, when the ball was moving and so on. So it was like details about just the tactics that he wanted me to do, and he was explaining me because, you know, I've always been an attacking player, and he wanted to work on my defensive side when we didn't have the ball. So those are the things that he was like trying to tell me on the room, but you know, in my head was going like 1,000 miles an hour because, you know, like I really knew that I wasn't even going to be able to train today, you know. So yeah, that was very sad.
So obviously you're thinking the entire time he's talking to you, I am not feeling 100%. You know it. You know your body as an athlete. Yeah. What is that mental toll like? Is it difficult knowing I'm not going to be able to do what he's asking me to do? Like, does that anxiety make it even worse?
Yeah, it was horrible because, you know, you're doing good and you're kind of like going up, you know, and it's hard because it's very competitive. You have so many players fighting for that spot, and it's, you know, when you're playing in that level, it's like a fight every day, you know. First of all, it's a fight to get there. And a lot of players sometimes they think like, oh, I got there. Oh, now I'm like comfortable. I'm here. But no, it never gets comfortable. When you're there, every day you're like fighting. And once you're, you know, like winning your spot and gaining your spot, and then suddenly you have all these injuries and you cannot perform. And like I said, it's very frustrating. That day already, when I woke up and I wasn't feeling 100%, just to drive all the way to training, and you're thinking in your head like, oh my God, like I'm gonna get there and I'm gonna have to tell them that I'm injured. And that's the last thing they want to hear because at the time, MLS, we didn't have a reserve team. We didn't have a youth squad. We only have the first team, and you only had, I think, like 24 players. So if you're injured, that means the team has 23 players. And then, you know, we had also other players that were injured that season. We had Taylor Twellman that was injured. You know, we had Edgardo Jankauskas. We had some of our top players injured. So our team was already kind of, you know, we didn't have our full squad. So any player that would get hurt, it was like the worst situation possible. And that's what happened to us, you know, so.
So Taylor Twellman, speaking of him, is now one of those guys who really is at the core of the sports media landscape within the MLS. Yeah. What was he like as a teammate?
He was awesome. He, you know, he's an idol there in New England Revolution in Boston. So everybody loves him, you know. And to be able to be there with him in the locker room talking, and he would talk to us all the time and, you know, and motivate, you know. He was very passionate. You know, he played for the USA national team. So, you know, having a person like that, you know, he helps so much the younger guys that are coming up because you look up to those players, you know.
So I was part of the MLS with Inter Miami CF for 3.5 years as a broadcaster. You were there as a player.
Yeah.
The league has grown so much more since you and I have not been there. Where do you think the MLS can go as a league? Obviously, the Apple TV deal was big. I have my own thoughts on that, though, in terms of the brand recognition of Apple TV as a streaming service. Like, I think maybe had they waited a little longer, taken less money from ESPN, my personal opinion, I think the league would be maybe even bigger now with the promotional arm here in the United States. But obviously, Messi has changed things tremendously. How do you feel about where the league is headed? Maybe tell me a little bit about the media contract. And have they reached their peak, or are they just getting started?
Ooh, I think they're just getting started. I remember, there's a lot of things that I saw in my time here in the United States. You know, I remember when Real Salt Lake was first announced. I was actually one of the people voting for the name because there was a couple names like Real Salt Lake. It was like Salt Lake Rats or Real Salt Lake, or, you know, and I remember I was voting for it. I remember doing my first like tryout. I think I was 15 years old or 16 years old when I tried out for the Real Salt Lake team. And they only had like a few teams. I think they had like at the time maybe like 6 teams in the league or something like this. So I remember like all this growth, and then I remember when David Beckham came and how huge they became. And I remember going to Romania, and I was there in Romania in this small little town in the middle of nowhere, and the TV was on, and MLS game was showing there, and I was like, wow, they're showing MLS games here. It was mind blowing, you know. So first of all, I think that whatever they did, you know, to put a soccer league here in America and the way it grew, it's like phenomenal. I don't even know how they did it, because people don't realize how hard it is and how competitive it is. And right now they're the biggest league in the United States, and I don't consider United States a national league. I consider a continental league, because sometimes, you know, when you see in Europe and you see the French league or the Italian league, you know, and those countries are the size of like a state. And this here you have like Florida, and you have California, and you have all these states, and you have to travel this long distance, like how it would be if, you know, a European team was traveling from Turkey to England to play games. But and that's just a national league. So it's you know, I think the MLS, it will grow to maybe to be one of the top leagues in the world, maybe the top league in the world, we don't know. But I think, you know, since I first saw until now, it's crazy how big it is. And now with Messi now, you know, we had David Beckham era. Now we have the Messi era. What's next, you know? Yeah, I think, yeah. And one thing, actually, it's interesting. I was with Mark Abbott. He was the president of MLS. And we were in his office. And this is, I think, 2013. And I was talking because, you know, at the time, you know, I really wanted to bring MLS team here to Miami. We didn't have it, but at the time, Marcelo Claude and Beckham group, and they were starting to work the deal. But we didn't know if they were going to come to Miami or not. So I went there to his office. We were there. We were like, you know, talking, trying to bid to put a team here. And at the time, he would come to our office. He would talk to us and, you know, to help us organize things. And then he said to us, give me a second, because I have a huge meeting next door. And he kept going back and forth the day. And eventually I said, what meeting is this? They keep coming back and forth. He said to me, well, this is the first time that we're making a national broadcast deal. So all the MLS games are going to be nationally broadcast. I think it was like a $70 million deal or something like this that they were putting together. We'll find out when we put it here, like that deal. Yeah. But that was like, and that was the day that he was making that deal. He was back and forth from the office and that was a huge thing for MLS, because MLS was fighting so hard to have the games broadcasted and so on, open TV. But I remember that. So yeah, I think it's crazy how much they grew. I think the path that they're going is great, and I think this World Cup coming in here is gonna maybe push things to the limit.
So that brings us to this point now with the World Cup, and that's actually how I met you. The Youth World Cup is going to be the largest youth soccer tournament in the history of the sport for youth players, and it's going to be hosted here in Miami, and it's already underway, some of those pre-qualifying rounds, and it's amazing. It's across states. They couldn't keep the qualifying rounds to just Miami, so it's grown a lot. And they announced that I was going to be the official host for that, and you immediately commented, and you were like, how can I support this? Or this is an amazing initiative. How important is a tournament like that and a stage like that for these young players in Miami and really all across the country and maybe even the world, because there's some international participating teams as well?
Well, I think, you know, anywhere that you can play, that you can show your skills somewhere and you get to be seen, it's an amazing opportunity for the kids. And there's so many places around the world that kids would love to be part of something like this, but they cannot be because, it's happening here. So, and I feel sometimes that people here, they don't understand how big the World Cup is, how big a tournament like this is for the kids, because all the world's attention is here now. They have their eyes here. They have their eyes in Miami, which, if you thought about it, like, let's say 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and you talk about soccer in Miami, it was like almost non-existent in the world scenario. Now you have Inter Miami making these huge things, playing the FIFA Club World Cup, which was crazy. And now you're going to have a city here hosting so many games. And then you have FIFA like now here in Miami. So all eyes are here. All eyes are in these kids now. So anywhere you're playing right now, even if it's in the street here, you might have people that are super well connected to the world of soccer just there, just watching you, because everybody's here.
People could not be more excited about it, especially the big World Cup, the FIFA World Cup, beyond the youth side of things, which is incredibly important, I think, for the grassroots of the game, and I'm sure you would agree. But the actual games being played in the United States, and 7 matches, I believe, being played here in Miami, what is that kind of investment going to do for Miami, do you think, as well as the United States, in terms of the growth of soccer?
It's kind of like having I think 10 Super Bowls or maybe 15 Super Bowls happening in the summer here. And then if you put that into perspective, that's pretty crazy. So I can imagine how much money it's going to bring. And then there's going to be so many people here that going to, see this opportunity, and they're going to do something about it and maybe make a good amount of money, and maybe open the doors for other things. So yeah, I'm sure it's going to be insane.
I can't wait. I genuinely am so excited as someone from Miami to talk about what you were just saying right now. You're like, I don't know when I think people are going to realize it's here when it's here next summer and you feel the buzz. And I think that'll be the real moment that pushes soccer. Have you
been to a World Cup before?
I've never been to a World Cup. So I know I remember the Brazil World Cup being the first World Cup that I remember watching. Yeah. And that one was just an unbelievable scene. Yeah. I cannot imagine what it will be like here in Miami. I really do think it's going to be special. It's going to have an American flair to it. But Miami is the cultural epicenter, I think, in terms of Latin America in the United States. And I'm sure that it'll be the most vibrant and best feel.
I think it's going to be the best World Cup in history. I don't know why. I just feel it. I remember, growing up, I remember a little bit about the 1994 World Cup because I was very young. But I remember a little bit about it. And then later on, obviously, just rewatching it and so on. And I saw how cool it was and how that helped to create the Major League Soccer. And then now we get the opportunity. Because I thought in my lifetime, I said, I'm never going to have in my lifetime an opportunity to see another World Cup in the United States because they kind of recently had it, recently. But when they announced this World Cup here, I was like, oh, wow. This is time. This is time for us, even for my company, for everything. We need to do something now, because this is a huge opportunity for us, So, yeah, we're so fortunate to be living right now and being able to have a World Cup here in our country, it's crazy. And this is going to be probably the last time because I don't know how long after this they're going to bring back a World Cup here again.
Of course, and hopefully they bring it back relatively soon within our lifetime, right? Because I also agree it's going to be a massive success, but I also can't help but wonder, for sure, there's a chance that it doesn't come back, and let's make the most out of it. Yeah. So you are the owner of a soccer team, Miami Dade FC. You're also the president. How are you, as a club, preparing for the madness and the soccer frenzy that is going to be here in the United States within probably... It's 12 months away, the actual matches, right? Probably 11 months away at this point. But the hype is really going to start in just about 6-7 months. So are you prepared for that?
I don't know if I'm prepared. But we're working. We're moving things. We're meeting people. We're trying to brainstorm ideas. We're actually putting together a really nice project here in Florida, which we've been working very hard to do. And especially, as the World Cup is coming, we want to get things ready, by that time. So we purchased some land here, and we're in the works of building a massive sports and entertainment facility there for our team, and to host tournaments, to do all sort of things there. It will be a full-time also boarding school for kids, and it will be our home. We never had a home. My team never had a home we always rented facilities, universities, public stadiums, but we never had our own home. We never had our own stadium. So this is a good opportunity for us to slowly start growing.
How much is the facility going to cost? Tell me about some of the economics, and how much will it bring to Miami in terms of investment and overall growth as well for the community? What will it do for them?
We're initially spending on this first phase $100 million in this project, and we believe it can be like a big economic impact to Florida. And I think it will bring more opportunities. I know Inter Miami, and you have other teams as well building their own facilities, and we're also going to do ourselves. And we want to keep pushing to grow even more.
How do your own athletes react to you being the owner? Because it has to be almost like you're their hero or like you're a great role model, because you are someone who played the game at a high level, maybe because of injuries and circumstances beyond your control, weren't able to have the kind of career that maybe you hoped for and that you were capable of, but you have found so much success in the second act of your career. What have they ever asked you for advice, and what do you try to tell them?
Yeah, well, all the time, because I live everything that they live through, So even now, we were in Greece last week, and I was talking to some of the players, and I was telling them, I said, I went through everything that you're going through. I know what you're thinking. I know like how you're feeling, and I know how hard it is, because some of the players, they want in their heads, they say, I want to play for Real Madrid or Manchester United or Barcelona, whatever, and it's so hard to get to that level, but it's not impossible. It is not impossible, but it's just so many different things. It's not just about having it's not just, okay, I'm very talented. You can have very good technique, but maybe your fitness level is not at that level. Maybe you have the talent, maybe you have the physical, but you don't have the context to be there. Or maybe you have all three, but then you don't have the luck, because you also have to have the little 3% of luck. You see like all the time a lot of like players playing the top level for their national teams and so on. And sometimes like, oh, that guy, like he's not as good as this other guy, but maybe he had that little luck because he was in the right place in the right moment. They needed that position. That coach really liked that style. So there's so many things that need to align for you to get to that level. It's not as simple as people think. But another thing as well is that, and I tell this to all the players all the time, is the persistent. Because, maybe, you're very talented, you have all these things, and you can play in that level. And I've seen so many players that come through our schools, that they were in a really good level to play in the first division of football. But, they got frustrated so many times, then they say, something, I don't want to play anymore. And they just give up. But if they hold on a little bit more, maybe, they could have made something out of it.
I understand that completely, right? Yeah. Like it's a matter of being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And you can carry that across life, that kind of a lesson. Mm-hmm. And I've certainly had moments where maybe I wasn't ready, but I was there at the right time. And this is kind of one of those moments, for example, that I really appreciate you stopping by. And it is certainly something that people undervalue, is the luck element, as well as I think a little bit of fate. I'm someone who's very, faith-based, and I've definitely had moments where it's like you were in the right place at the right time, or you met the right person, and it takes you over the top.
Yeah.
With that being said, many former athletes, maybe like Taylor Twellman, your former teammate, go into sports media or into commentary. Very few former athletes end up going to become a Hollywood film producer.
Right.
Where did you get that idea from? How did you know you were inspired to take on that journey?
Yeah, well, I always grew up, watching, like movies, and I love movies. I'm a huge movie fan. And, growing up, I always, wanted to, maybe be an actor or maybe make a movie or something. And I was super curious to be involved in that. But life took me to become a soccer player. But even as a soccer player, I always started in my head, say, maybe once I finish playing soccer, I would love to do movies. And once I stopped playing soccer, and we decided to say, okay, let's build something. Let's start making this. So first I started with like a small little company, and we were making like little commercials and reality TV shows and music videos, and we were doing all that kind of stuff. And but I always wanted to jump to movies, but how do you do that? It's so difficult, and I feel like Hollywood is so like tight. It's so close to get in. And but anyways, I started brainstorming some ideas how maybe I could get into that. And then I met this guy, phenomenal guy, Tyler Davidson. I saw he owned this company for many years, Low Spark Films, and he had so many movies, and I seen some of his movies. I was actually a big fan of one of his movies, and I got in contact with him, and I slid in his DMs on Instagram, and then we became friends. And then he flew in here to Miami to meet me, and then like later on we flew together to Brazil. We brainstormed some ideas. He has a lot of amazing ideas for future movies, and they just had. He just had this hit movie called Emily the Criminal, which was one of the top movies on Netflix worldwide. So, we're like, okay, what's next for the company? What can we do next? So, we got ourselves together. We made a deal. I became co-owner with him. And now we just work on our first movie together, which was Buddy. It's a horror movie. So we filmed this summer. It was a crazy experience. Because it was my first feature film, big project, and it was amazing filming this. It was I don't even know how to explain. And we were just talking about it while we were shooting there. There was one time that me and him were sitting, and I was like, this is like unreal, because when you're shooting that kind of movie, and we had to make all these different scenarios. We made like one of the scenarios was, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but one was like a jungle, and there was another one was like desert and so on, and and we're living through these experiences there, and you really absorb it. Like I felt like I was living through this movie, and it was such a beautiful thing to feel. Like making a movie, it's amazing. Obviously, you have now this huge thing that you have to deliver this movie to be really awesome for other people to enjoy, and that's how you can keep growing. But it was such an amazing experience doing this movie. It was one of I think the biggest, one of the most fun things I ever did in my life.
What are your 3 favorite movies of all time? Because as a movie buff, you've got to have a short list that is probably pretty tough to crack, but is pretty great.
I don't have these 3 are my favorite, but I have a couple that I frame and I put in my movie theater room. Back to the Future, Jurassic Park. And then the third one, I don't have one that I would say, but there's so many different types of movies that I like. But growing up, I was a huge Will Ferrell fan, so anything with Will Ferrell was super funny to see. Adam Sandler movies, Ben Stiller, I don't know. I just have so many different movies, but those movies you see, those ones for sure, they're right there, as my favorite.
Who are some of the biggest stars out there in the Hollywood world, whether they're behind the scenes or in front of the camera, that you've worked with that you're like, man, that's just such a great person?
Yeah. Well, on this last movie, we worked with Cristin Milioti, and she was really sweet, very sweet. We worked also with Topher Grace. He did Spider-Man. He was Venom, and which I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and so it was really cool to have him there. And I actually, during the movie, I was like, there was a scene that he needed to have a family, like a fake family, So I was like, I can be part of your fake family, so we can be twin brothers. So we decided to be twin brothers. So we were doing photos and stuff and putting all over his room as twin brothers. And then we got another friend of ours that was working there, and I said, we should do triplets now. And then we had this our own little fake family. So we had a really great time with Topher, and and all the actors there, everybody's just so nice, because everybody I think is so excited to be there, and it was really special. But one thing that was very interesting on shooting Buddy is we worked with kids, and that was my first time working doing something with kids like that, and so I didn't know what to expect. But it was really cool, and and I feel the bond, the kids themselves had a bond. They became really friends there, and we were shooting a horror movie with kids, so you can imagine how it was, But the kids were so professional, and I was thinking my whole time, I was like, man, if I was a kid like this, working a movie like this and seeing all this blood and all these things, I would be terrified, I would be literally terrified. And the kids were tough. They worked through it. There was one time that one of the actors, got so freaked out that she started crying, because it was scary.
La pobrecita, yeah, I'm
It
sure.
was a very scary scene.
I wouldn't be able to stomach that if I was a young kid at all.
But besides that part, the kids were so tough and they were like just doing it and they were so like sharp. It was super interesting to see the kids acting. But yeah, it was really cool.
What would your advice be to someone who wants to get into the film world? Because obviously you did not have a conventional path, but you've sort of risen here to an amazing success. And obviously your age, your talent, what you've worked on, you have so many more things that you can work on.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to them?
Well, people ask me that all the time, and everybody has somebody like either like a granddaughter or like a niece or somebody. They're always like, "Oh, she's like a good actress or a good actor." What can we do? Well, number one thing, we are preparing to have our own film school. So we want to have that in our facility. That's one of the things we're working on because we want to also help. Because we already do that with soccer. We have our soccer academies all over the world. And, we pick the best players and we take them with us to our international tours, just like I did right now in Greece. We do that about 3 times a year. So, for example, this year we already went to Serbia, we went to Croatia, now Greece. Now, at the end of the year, I think we're going to go to China. We take these players, we bring them with us, and then we try to place them to bigger teams than ours, right? That's pretty much our whole philosophy of our team, is just to give that path. They come, they play with us, boom, they move forward to something bigger. And with the movies, is the same. We want to, help out, people that have their dreams to, move on and to be eventually in a movie like ours, or maybe to bigger movies than ours. And we have like some success already doing that. We had 2 movie directors that have never directed a movie before directing for us, and we gave them this opportunity. One of them went to direct the movie King Kong: Skull Island, which is a huge movie. And the other one went to direct the movie Transformers, the Michael Bay movie. So it's really cool to see, they never directed a movie before. They directed a movie with us. And then right after us, boom, King Kong, Transformers. And that's a really cool case. So, I always tell people, nothing is impossible. Nothing. Just don't give up. Be there. And if you want something, go after that, because nothing's going to be given to you. Well, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, yeah, but like most of the time, no. Most of the time, you have to fight for it. You have to network. You have to be there. You have to, fight for like a really cool interview or whatever. Of course,
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, nothing comes easy. So, you have to fight it. Don't give up, and keep pushing and keep involving yourself around those people that are doing stuff. So, the more you surround yourself with those people, the more opportunities are going to open up for you.
How do you work around that?
Well, those people that have that, they have this huge advantage over the people they don't have. So if you don't have it, you have to do other things that people don't. Growing up, I always remember in the soccer world, people used to tell me like, oh, if that guy is, running 2 miles, go ahead and you run 4. Always try to do more than the other people are doing, so you can be that level more, I try to follow that. Obviously, I don't know how good I did on that, but I always try to do that. And I think that people that don't have an extra easy step, they're going to have to compensate by doing more stuff around it, and that's like how it is. And, it's funny because, for example, I see some of the people that, they were trying to be on our movie. We had a lot of casting, like a lot of people that wanted to be there. And then some people, they got it. And the reason why was maybe because of the little extra thing that they had. It was like, okay, she has that one is good, very good, and we would love to have that person in our movie. But the other one, that extra thing, so we'll take it in. So sometimes it's just by the little extra thing. Maybe because they might be a little bit nicer. Maybe you have a thing that like, oh, she was kinder. I don't know. It could be anything, But I always say, you have to work on so many different things because it's so competitive out there. So it's a fight, it's a war out there. You can say, I'm very new into the movies. It's not like, it's not I've been working like for so long. I did like I said, like reality shows and music videos and things like that. But one thing that I thought was funny was back in the day, I used to always put my father to be part of all of our projects. And he did not want it to be part of it. You know, he was kind of forced into it. So, for example, I had a music video. You guys can even upload it here to see it, where my father was one of the main actors on it. Well, actually, he was the main actor on it. He was the teacher. As the classroom was going completely crazy and destroying, they even destroy his car on the video. You know, I wanted to blow up the car, but the director of the school didn't allow us. So we just, I just beat the car very bad. But yeah, so I think, you know, maybe my father was the funniest person that we always put it in, you know, against his will. You know, we didn't have many people. We're like, okay, we have my father, or what else are we gonna have? You know, so we just push him in. So that was kind of cool.
So your dad was obviously an important part of your upbringing, and he's been clearly very supportive of you now.
Yeah.
I also read that your mom, named Alessandra, was actually an anchor woman in Brazil.
Right.
Is that accurate?
Correct, yes.
So my mom worked in the media space when I was growing up, still does in communications, studied broadcast journalism at the University of Miami.
Yeah.
It is a unique dynamic to have mom work in the media space.
Right.
How did it shape your storytelling?
Yeah, so, you know, it's huge because, you know, growing up, I was a huge fan of my mom. Like, you know, I used to see her. She was, you know, very, very famous there in Brazil. And it was very cool to see her delivering the news. And her company, you know, it's a very big company. You know, it was, you know, the biggest company in Brazil. So it was awesome. And that, I think, you know, from being there in the studios, growing up, you know, and, you know, touching the cameras and filming and doing all sorts of things, I think that led me to really like this media part, you know. But yeah, eventually my mom got sick. She got very sick, and you know, she couldn't work anymore into that, you know, in that position. But now she's better now. But it was very nice. It was amazing to, you know, to grow up and watching her do those things, you know.
It feels like you have lived so many different lives, and as an investor, as an entrepreneur, as a film director, as a former athlete, as now the owner of a team.
Yeah.
What do you want to be remembered for?
Oof, I don't know. Why would I be? I don't know. I would really want to make really cool movies. I think that would be awesome. You know, we're working on our next movies now. We have a lineup. Our next movie we're gonna shoot in March. I think I would love to be, you know, I would love to people to enjoy our movies. I think that's number one. And I want to grow our soccer team. I want to keep, you know, placing players in bigger teams and seeing them succeed. I want our team to keep growing. You know, I want to make this project here in Florida happen because I think it's going to be huge for the kids. It's a great opportunity for them in the movie business, in the soccer business. And I think those things will be, like, as of right now, the things that I would like people to know.
That's amazing. Well,
yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Roberto. This was an excellent
No,
conversation,
thank
and best of luck to you. And we'll be on the lookout for Miami Dade FC's latest facility. That is going to be amazing. And thank you for sort of breaking that news on here today.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you so much for having me here. It was a pleasure, and I want to come back more so we can talk more and brainstorm some other things to talk about.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.